Okay, is everybody ready? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Virginia City Council Chambers. Today is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. The time is 9 a.m. Welcome to everybody who's in the audience this morning. It's the presenters that are going to be addressing the council today on a variety of topics. And for those of you who are listening at home, we hope that you find the information provided educational. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, you certainly call City Hall and we'll certainly provide you with any information you need. So we have a full agenda today, some topics that may take some significant discussion. So everyone, please bear with us as we get through this agenda. We have a quorum present with one counselor absent, authorized absent. And so we'll move from there and we'll turn the agenda over to our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
The first item on the agenda under appearances is Marcia Johnson, the Mesabi Fit Coalition, for the presentation of a resolution for council consideration.
Marietta, would you please state your name for the record and welcome to the council meeting.
Oh, sorry. We are attempting to gain as much support as we can from organizations, businesses, and individuals. And to just give you an idea, we are made up of a large group of former Y members and nonprofit organizations and community leaders, many of which, like me, were surprised when the YMCA was closed. We've done some research and we understand they were trying to get the message out, but it just didn't reach some of us, certainly a lot of us that are very concerned about the closure. We are incorporated and we're seeking nonprofit public charity status. We have a group of potential funders to help us, and we are planning to do a press release shortly and launching a webpage. So we've done a lot since the Y was closed. We're waiting for an appraisal and the listing. We have two goals, possible outcomes of our goal to make something of the building. One would be to pull together a group of organizations that will deliver a community recreation center together, or to acquire the building on our own and achieve the same outcome, which is basically a recreation center for the benefit of families, youth, and low-income individuals. So I think you have a copy of the resolution, and I'm happy to read it for you if you'd like, or to answer any questions.
Thank you for coming. Yes, I think it would be appropriate for the general public to hear the resolution that's before us today. So if you wouldn't mind reading it, thank you.
Sure. So whereas the Mesabi Fit Coalition has been formed as a nonprofit corporation with the following mission: the Mesabi Fit Coalition is committed to ensuring that the Mesabi Family Y facility will be used for aquatic fitness and other recreational opportunities by the general public, including children, seniors, and low-income families. Whereas the Mesabi Fit Coalition seeks to secure a supportive partnership of local organizations, businesses to acquire and operate the Mesabi Family Y property, or alternatively, to acquire it ourselves to establish a nonprofit community recreation center sustained in part by user memberships. Whereas the Mesabi Family Y facility has served the Iron Range community for over 30 years, providing recreational opportunities such as aquatics, which are not available elsewhere in our area. Without this aquatics program, children have far fewer options for learning to swim, and seniors and mobility challenged people are deprived of the health benefits of water exercise. Whereas the facility also has a history of using scholarships and other subsidies to ensure that a broad range of recreation opportunities are available to community members not able to pay market rate memberships. Whereas it took a broad-based public and private community investment to build and sustain this facility. And whereas the viability of this facility delivers dividends to our community through improved individual health, positive recreation opportunities, and a source of community identity and pride. We are asking for your support.
Thank you, Marietta. Any questions, comments from the council, the elected body? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. I would like to thank you for forming this. We've had many different groups that have come forward that have missed and were not aware of what was happening, especially our seniors who used the pool for their water aerobics. And you're right, there is no other facility in our area. So I thank you for forming this and coming forward, and I would be fully supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Johnson.
We'll move the resolution of support.
Okay.
Support.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the resolution of support for the YMCA resolution that's before us in our packet today, and move this for final approval to the City Council. It's supported by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And final approval will be, for the record, will be on next Tuesday's meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in. Jim, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. I do want to add on Adam Venn under appearances from Range Transitional Housing. Adam's got a unique project that they're looking to build on the north side of Virginia near the Columbia and Richelieu Towers. And he's looking for support from the city for a resolution from IRRB, for a resolution to allow us to apply for an IRRB grant on his behalf.
Adam, thank you. Please come forward and make sure the green light is on there on the microphone. And please state your name for the record, and welcome to the Virginia City Council meeting, or the committee home meeting, excuse me.
Thank you. My name is Adam Venn with Range Transitional Housing here in Virginia. We help the homeless population in town here. We are looking at building a family emergency housing project on our property, like Brett said, over on 5th Street North. We had purchased a piece of property next to our office a few years ago and had it torn down, and now we're looking at building. I have some plans here that I don't know how to share them. Like maybe I could throw them on the table up there or something. But what it is, essentially, we're looking at a fourplex, so 4 separate units, 2 2-bedrooms, 2 3-bedrooms to serve families who are in an emergency housing situation. So we do have support from the county. They've committed $1.2 million of ARPA funds. We're looking at a total project cost of like $1.5 to $1.7 million. So the plans are up there. It's, we were hoping potentially to break ground this fall, but it's looking more like a spring project. Once we get it out for bids, we're working with DSGW on the design. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Questions?
I know I had a brief opportunity to meet with you in Britt's office. Not that thank you for inviting me in. I was in there on another matter. You showed me the plans in that regard. I think I think our city will be, the council will be looking at some more detailed information about that. But the concept is phenomenal. It's a needed type of housing in the city of Virginia, which you do not have. We need transitional housing. We need emergency shelter housing. We need more senior housing. We need more market rate housing. We need multi-unit housing too. So, I mean, this is just one in a series of, you're good. Okay, thank you. We're in a series of projects that are moving forward. This is a great opportunity and a great idea for us moving forward. So, Adam, I appreciate it. This is exciting, particularly when you're able to receive $1.2 million at startup costs as a result of this. So it is very exciting to see that. I know that we have things like the youth foyer that accommodates a certain group of people. We have you arranged other housing complexes that do the same thing. But this is very unique, and it supports families for periods of time under emergency and desperate situations. So this is a great opportunity for us to invest in the community, in that part of the population that isn't represented, and they don't have a place to go. And so this is really exciting. Anybody else have any questions or comments with respect to this? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you so much for bringing the plans and for the partnership with the county, I think is fantastic. This is an issue that really does need to be addressed. My question is, where's exactly is the property located? And then do you have an estimated total project cost?
Yeah, so the property's located, we have an office over on between 4th Street and 5th Street. There's that abandoned street kind of by the Alice Nettle Tower there.
Got it.
You know where I'm talking?
Yep.
So we bought the property right off the 2nd Avenue, and our office is right by it. So we tore down there was an old yellow building, I don't know if you remember the sign that was for sale for like 10 years. So that's where we're building it, and we're looking at, it's hard to get a real solid cost right now because construction, you can't get a real good answer from anyone. So I think we're looking at 1.5, 1.7. So with the county's 1.2, we got a good start, and we're hoping to work with the city on an IRRB application for infrastructure to help cover some more of the costs, and then we'll see where we're at.
And then the last question that I had is, in terms of partnerships for assisting these families in an emergency situation, could you maybe talk about who some of your strategic partners might be and how maybe the city could help you through this process?
Right, yeah. You know, we deal with, I mean, that's our business is emergency housing right now. I mean, we deal with the homeless population. We partner with AUA, Arranged Mental Health, the other agencies that work with the population. So we're partnering with AUA. They're going to kind of lease the units from us to provide us operating costs for the units through some county, they call it cost-neutral transfer funding. So we have money there for ongoing operating support. So we're going to partner with them. And then we're hoping to reach out to, you know, the police department, you know, in case of a DV situation or, you know, Advocates for Family Peace, and anyone else who we can reach out to in need, you know, who may access these units. So.
Thank you so much, and I
Yeah, thank
appreciate you being willing to take a project of this size on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. So the purpose of us is just to give us a preliminary information about, you know, what your plans are, what you like to do, and you're looking for some assistance in moving forward with this project in the future. Are you asking for us as a city to take any action at this point in time?
Yes, we will need to be a fiscal agent for a grant from IRRB on their behalf.
Very good, thank you. That's for the general public's edification. Thank you for that, Britt. Councilor Johnson.
I will move to direct staff to work with Range Transitional Housing to prepare the appropriate resolutions and support moving forward for this project.
Okay, a motion by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor. Okay, it was a dual role here. Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Looking forward for some more information moving forward, and then this is need, but we're moving forward the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
And may we keep these?
Yeah, sure. Sure. And I have some brochures too, I'll just throw up here.
Sure.
In case anyone's curious.
All right, we'll distribute them to the council and anybody from the general public.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Item number 2 on the agenda is review city policies. The city credit card policy is number 1.
Okay, thank you. And as a result of some of the issues that came about with respect to a travel request or sending an employee down without having prior travel requests, I think that's what generated this. I read through the credit card policy, and as far as the policy goes, from the information that I know, I think the credit card policy is pretty solid, but I'm looking for, we are looking for some discussion about that. Once again, I know we've changed it a number of times, but it's always nice to take another look and try to hone the issues that come about as a result of this. But I'm comfortable with the policy as written, just as long as it's administered properly, and I think it has been. But that being said, we'll move to the rest of the council for discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I had asked to have this put on the agenda at a previous council meeting. And one of the things that I had asked, first of all, is to all of the employees that have credit cards that have been issued to them. And the email I think we received is there's 13 employees that do have credit cards. I do want to address in the policy, and I apologize, I'm having trouble with my computer and scrolling right now. But I do want to address in the policy where it states that department heads may be issued a credit card, and the list of employees that we received, there are 2 that are actually not department heads. They are MAPE union members, but they are not department heads. So I'd like to understand how we address that. And then the second portion of this is on the travel portion. I apologize, I'm having a really tough time scrolling through this. It's just not working. Maybe I need to go on my phone. But on the travel request side, thank you. Yeah, there's also a second page on our travel. It's the expense, thank you, Brett. It's the expense reimbursement. And when those are filled out, I believe they go to our finance director, Sherry. And I was wondering if there is a way to have those come back so that the council knows what the expenditures were on each of those and that everything is accounted for properly. And the reason I'm kind of going this way, and I'm specifically concerned about cash flow at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center and how we go forward with, since we have a new position there with the traveling that's going to be taking place, I want to be mindful of what those expenses actually look like and what the specifics of those expenses are documented in R4. So to address the first issue, in our policy, it states department heads there's a process that needs to take place. They need to basically apply for a credit card, which then gets reviewed by I believe our city administrator, and then gets issued. 2 of the people on the list, again, are not department heads, so I'd like to understand how we address that, if someone could help me out with that portion of my discussion.
Okay. Sherry, could you kind of give a rundown of the credit cards that are issued, whether it's to a department head or to another employee within the city, and the reason why they were issued, and the responsibilities they have in conjunction with their job description? Sherry?
Correct, and just as you so eloquently stated, it has to do with their job and their duties. So the 2 that I feel that you mentioned that they're in MAPE, I was directed by the city administrator to issue credit cards for them because of their job duties.
Okay, thank you for that. So I understand that a little bit better, and I know I had a discussion about this with you, Sherry. On one of those employees, I do not know that there will be travel necessary, or I guess if I can use the title, can I use the title of the job description that
Sure can.
I guess I'd like to understand a little bit more, but it would be our event coordinator, who falls under our facilities services manager. Is that correct? So my question would be, the facility services manager already has a credit card in place. The event coordinator is coordinating events and not necessarily would be utilizing that for any expenditures according to what the job description, how the job description is listed. So I guess I'd like some clarification as to the justification for the issuance of a city credit card on that particular job title.
Mayor,
Sherry, our finance director.
Mayor and Council, I would like to call Brian Silver, the department head, up to address the fact that there are times when the MAPE Gym Hunt is not available, and the event coordinator has to purchase things for events at last minute.
Thank you, Sherry. Brian, our park rec director, good morning.
Good morning. That would be accurate. And there is some travel involved in that position. This past weekend was not filled out via travel request because it was not an overnight travel, but the event coordinator did go down to the Duluth the Duluth wedding show. Prior to going down there, she had asked if she could purchase a couple of decorations because we ended up taking a small round table with us, linens, and decorated it like we did wood for a wedding in the facility to showcase some of the things that we're able to do. So she had some incidental purchases that purchased here locally to decorate that table. And that was more of a last minute type thing. Also better to purchase that locally than ordering online or anything like that.
Okay, so that helps me understand. So again, when our language is different in the policy, then either the policy needs to be adjusted or, and I don't know how that would state that because it's not a department head, but I'm actually not comfortable with some of the other types of things that I've seen go on within the credit card usage at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, and I'm not concerned about misuse, but I'm concerned about how we track that and how we allocate. I know the receipts are collected and so on and so forth, but my more so concern is that we're not using our purchase order process. Instead, we're using a credit card process. And I'd like to tighten that up, and I think that's why we've revisited this policy several times. And as we look forward to how that event center cash flows, I think it's really important that we work with our purchase order process and policy rather than our credit card policy. And I don't know how we can accomplish that, but I do have some concerns about how some of the usage has been handled in the past, as well as, I'm just going to say it, as well as the bundling of credit cards in order to make larger purchases. So like if one employee is at their limit, then the other employee can use that credit card and then they have to unravel that. I really would like to have it compartmentalized, and I don't know how everyone else feels, but I'm kind of a black and white person when it comes to how finances are organized. And to me, it's a little confusing, and it's not as organized and as structured as I feel it may need to be. And I'm not trying to pick on the Iron Trail Motors Event Center side or employees. I think with the other departments, it's pretty cut and dry within their department. This I guess we have a special side. I don't know if we have a fund or special, how we're assessing the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, what the technical financial word is that we use. But I think that then if it's set aside and we need to understand the cash flow portion of that, I guess I would like to see that side tightened up, and I don't want to discriminate against any other department. But I feel like there's just things that I can look at and go, okay, I have a question on this, or I'm not comfortable with that. So I don't know if that language can be changed or tightened up, but as it reads right now in our policy for credit cards, it's department heads, and the two new employees that were issued are not department heads technically. They are MAPE union members, yes. So I don't know how we address that language. And I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but I've also seen on our travel policies that they are not within the 30-day time frame, and it states right there on that time frame. So I think we need to do a better job at that, getting those in on time so that the council has a chance to review and ask any questions prior to any hotel bookings or anything of that sort of nature. And then as well as that expense report, that's the second page. I think we received that in an email from Britt maybe a week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. I would like to see that expense report come forward so we can kind of put a check off, yep, this is what happened and this is where, if we could see those documents, I would appreciate that. And maybe that's just something separate that counselors need to come down and view on their own. But that's just something I'd like to understand as we move forward with our financial planning of that facility. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. No other lights on. So I have a couple questions, Sherry. I know that we've revisited this credit card policy significantly, and I'm speaking for myself now. I think the latitude and the that we have, we put our trust and faith in our department heads in order to properly utilize any expenditures. And as Councilor Paulson indicated, that there's no issue with respect to, and there's no issue with respect to misuse or anything of that nature. It's more of a policy or procedural issue. But my question to you, Sherry, is that when we have our audit, which we just had one, and when the auditor reviews all our policies, the credit card policy, the purchase order policy, and those kind of things, and I think they scrutinize that pretty significantly. Is that correct?
Yes, they do take a random audit in addition to reviewing our policies. But as far as the travel reimbursement, that would be under payroll. And yes, please come down. Megan will have the timesheets, and usually the travel reimbursement with all the receipts are attached to that person's timesheet. So I can't just disperse that because sometimes there's quite a few receipts with it. I would prefer that you came down to the accounting office and reviewed it.
So thank you. And then my second question with respect to this is that in the auditor's report, and I went through that over the weekend, there's nothing indicating in that auditor's report that there was any concern about how we administer our credit card policy and how we administer and direct a delegate, whether it's a credit card purchase or whether it's a purchase order, based upon the circumstances, the time frame, and those kind of things. So there wasn't anything in there in discretion or a disposition or a comment by our auditors with respect to how we accomplish those goals or objectives in finance. Is that correct?
Yes, they did not mention it to me verbally either. So I do want to say that I think the credit card policy is pretty well outlined. In addition, to find out your cash flow, we have monthly budget statements, which now we're past the 15, so we got our investments in. We can send out August reports. Those credit card statements, when they arrive, they go to the city administrator. Everybody is to turn in their receipts for their charges, and on the next to the charge, there's a little blank, a little tiny blank, but you have to put in the code, which is for your department or wherever that's being charged to. So this is specifically lined item. You will see that charge into your monthly statement on your budget too.
And thank you. And then I have one more question, and then I'll go back to Councilor Paulson. So we have, a brand new facility, the Untitled Motors Event Center. And this facility has a revenue and expenditure that's separate really from, it's one of the largest entities we have with respect to rentals and those kind of things. And so I think that Councilor Paulson has asked for, and I think that you're preparing that document, is my understanding, of the expenditures and the revenues that are generated from the Ontario Motor Center from the date. It was September of 2020, and then so we're looking for that printout of what are our revenue and expenditures with respect to this, so we can help track that. I think that's one of the questions that we'd like to have answered, if that's possible to do so. So
Yes, that's in the monthly statements.
thank you very much. Okay, Councilor Paulson, then back over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So Sherry, will we be receiving those emails in separately, those statements, monthly?
The monthly financials that I usually send out.
I haven't seen like a breakout for the Eintracht Motors Event Center?
Yeah, there is one in there, so I'll definitely make sure to put it at the top.
Or maybe just, can you highlight it?
Yeah, I will.
Just so, I'm just
There's
trying
quite
to.
a few.
Just after what we're going through with facility usage agreements, all of the things that we have going on, to me, I just really want to wrap my head around where that building is going financially.
Okay, maybe I'll just send that out separately, in a separate email.
That would be, even if it's, that for me would help me.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
problem.
And then the other question that I had is, when counselors go to a conference or the mayor or whatever, we have one person that kind of books our itinerary and our travel, hotel and so on. And that's our city clerk. Thank you, Pam, for central booking agency. My question is, should we have in each department someone who is responsible for booking in that department? Would that help alleviate some of the potential? I know there's been probably no questions from an audit because we really haven't gone down this path yet. So in order to possibly avert any type of, you staying at an arm's length, could there be a way that we would implement one person in each department then that would be responsible for the booking of travel, and would that make sense? It's just something that I'm looking at, hopefully cutting off something that could be problematic in the future.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned my name with respect to the travel policy and request, so I'll address that issue. I haven't traveled very little as the mayor of Virginia, and when I do travel, I don't put in a travel request because I don't ask the city to pay for it. I know there's been rare occurrences where if I'm going for a long distance, I'll ask for a mileage reimbursement from time to time, but that's rare as well. And so as far as a travel request, if I was to go to travel, because being the elected official, I go through Pam, our city clerk, because it's transparent, it's recorded, it's documented, and it's approved at the committee, the whole level, or at the council level. And I think that's what happens with everybody who travels in this environment. If a travel request has to come in, if a department head approves a travel request, it does come to Pam, she records it, she adds it to the agenda, and we act on it at that time. And there are from time to time emergency circumstances where there isn't a meeting in between. And so a travel request has to be done, and the city administrator or the department head approves the travel request and then arranges the travel in that regard. And so I think it works pretty well, and for the most part. And so from a department head perspective, since I don't have a department head other than the city council, all the travel requests that I've had, which has been very, very few in the years that I've served as mayor, has had to come to the council for approval because I rarely ever ask for reimbursement. So, but anything below at the employee level, I think the travel requests are put forth for the most part, unless it's an emergency service circumstance, comes through Pam or through the department to Pam and then on to us. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. And I think you're going where I was trying to get to. And I think you and I have had a conversation about, when Pam books, it's for transparency's sake and the whole 9 yards, which I think that's kind of where I'm getting to with the transparency portion. And I'll just use fire departments here, so I'll just use the fire department as an example. So when a request comes forward from an employee at the fire department, it's not the employee that's using a credit card issued to such and such to book that travel. It is, I would say maybe Deb, does Deb take care of that for your department for booking? Typically the individual. So if you have, sorry, Chief, I didn't mean to call you on the carpet here, but I'm just trying to get some examples set forward here. So if you have a paramedic that's going to training, they book their own travel, and how do they pay for that?
Correct. I think our most recent example is our Fire Marshal Jake Keel.
But those are your upper level, I'm talking about those are your department heads, so non-department heads. Your non-department head employees?
Well, Jake is not. He's not a department head, but I see your distinction there. They will use either prior Alan Lewis's card or mine with our permission.
Okay, say that again.
They will use the department head credit card with our permission, like they will.
Okay, so the employee themselves are booking their own travel?
Correct. We look it over. We see the nights and we look over the itinerary and things like that, but the department heads do approve that, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if there's a way, to me, there's got to be a level of transparency when you're booking travel, and if it works and you're overseeing it, I think that's okay, but to me, I think that needs to be a little tighter, so I don't know what that looks like, but in some recent things that, that I've kind of watched happen, I just want to make sure that going forward, that transparent process is happening, and I felt like maybe it would be a better idea to have somebody who's centralized, like Pam, doing it for the council or for the mayor, that it would make sense for transparency and at an arm's length. So I don't know what everyone else feels, but it's just something that I wanted to address this morning, and I thank you for, giving me some examples of how your department conducts that process. Thank you.
No problem at all, and we're willing to change however is needed. We appreciate these
Not
opportunities
sure that I'm
to
looking
get
at
out.
change,
Sure.
but just to have this conversation, and especially for the Antrim Motors Event Center where travel is going to be a lot more necessary now going forward, and I think to understand how that works and making sure that the right and left hand knows exactly what's going on. So thank you, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
My questions were answered, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else with respect to these two items? Okay, Britt?
Was there anything further on the travel policy that we wanted to discuss? Councilor Beyondich?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I understand, I believe, where you're coming from, Councilor Paulson. And I think the travel request, when it comes forward to the council, a lot of those questions are asked and answered at that time. So it's important that that travel request comes before the council, before anything is issued. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments regarding these two items, the credit card policy or the travel reimbursement policy? Okay, thank you. Britt?
Thank you. Item number 3 is a request to approve the striping cooperative maintenance agreement with St. Louis County for 2023, and we do have our Public Works Director, Jim Rostfit, here in case we have any questions.
Thank you. This is, we do this on an annual basis. Is that correct? And we have had this in the past. Unless there's any other anomalies that are coming out or any significant increase in pricing or any other commitments we have to make, I think we can dispense with any information from you, Jim, unless the council asks to do so. Looking for council action with respect to this.
I will move for discussion.
Okay, Councilor Johnson moves to approve item 3 under street and alley to approve the striping cooperative maintenance agreement with St. Louis County for 2023. For discussion, is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Further discussion. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I guess my thought is with everything else that's been in your department, Jim, with, oh, by the way, here's an addendum for another amount. Do we have is there any cushion or guarantee that our agreement with the county isn't going to change if their agreement with the contractor changes?
Jim?
Yeah, I did bring that up. At this time, no. They're set on them guidelines and those price lines, so.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you checking on that already.
Thank you, Jim. And for those who are in the general public, Jim Rosvet is our Public Works Director. Thank you. Okay, it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda are 2 parade request permits we received. The first one is for Rockridge High School Student Council for the homecoming parade on September 30th, 2022.
Move to approve by Counselor Friede, been supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? You'll coordinate all those with him, with our staff. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Second one is USW Steelworkers, District 11, for their Steelworker Parade and Rally on October 8th, 2022.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5 is review the proposal from Takala Farms to haul wet tons of biosolids in an amount up to $36,400. And we have Paul Moe from the wastewater treatment plant here.
Paul?
Morning, yeah, Paul Moe with
Good morning.
Human
Is there
Services.
any, how much more is it from last year?
It's, I wrote that down this year.
Okay, I know that was the same question I asked you last year, so thank you.
Last year it was 31,600 and this year it's 36,400, so $4,800 more.
And the reason for that?
Mr. Takla said it's fuel costs.
Sure, understandably so. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul. If you just hang out here for a minute until we muddle through this. Counselor Paulson?
I would move to approve, Mayor.
Counselor Paulson moves to approve the biosolid contract. Is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is an update on the Coalition of the Greater Minnesota Cities annual dues, and this comes from the September 13th, 2022 council meeting.
Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. I did get a call back from Anna McDonald with CGMC, and she noted that our prices are based on the 2020 population, which was 8,421, and the per capita was increased 3%. We were at 1.49, and now it is at 1.53. And there is a base rate of $1,500 that is annually charged. So the base rate in plus the per capita comes to the $14,384.
I will move payment of the CGMC dues.
Council Johnson moves to approve the payment of the CBDG dues. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Paulson for further discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. From that council meeting on 9/13, there were two figures. One was for the voluntary assessment. Does that include the voluntary assessment, or do we need to move that? Did we move that and approve that at that meeting, and just had a question on the dues portion of it?
Yes, there was just a question on the dues, so we would have to approve the voluntary assessment as well.
So we have to do both of those because we did not do the voluntary one at that meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so
I would amend my motion accordingly.
You're amending your motion to approve them both? Okay, and
I would
it's,
amend my support.
okay, moved and supported, and with the amendment include both dues payments for the same organization. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 7 is discuss the facilities use agreement between the City of Virginia and Independent School District number 2909, Rockridge Public Schools.
And this is related to the ice?
This is related to the facilities use agreement for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, and because this relates to a real estate negotiation, this portion of the meeting may be closed as per Minnesota Statute 13D05 for real estate negotiations if the council so chooses.
Okay, is the recommendation that we go into a closed session because it's a real estate transaction? Okay. Is there anything that would negate this to be a public matter? Brian?
It's a matter for the council. The theory to close is that there would be, and obviously, the theory would be that a lease transfer would be a sale of some interest in the property, though it wouldn't be an outright sale of the fee interest in the property. It's a sale of the time and use portion of a possession interest in the real property or the space. The question becomes whether or not part of there would be value from a negotiation standpoint in having part of the discussion be confidential to the city council. And if that election is made, the council has to be very careful that they only discuss those strategic portions in a closed session.
Okay, very good. And so I guess we'll put you on the spot here. As a recommendation is that keeping it in an open session, is that going to negate any, create any issues for the city moving forward? I guess that's a kind of a difficult question to ask you. You just answered, I guess. You just explained it, the question I just asked, so you can disregard that. So, okay, looking for council action with open or close. Council Johnson?
I just had to ask that question when I saw this was on the agenda. And looking back at what's been going on, we've done most of it publicly. So I guess I'll start. I don't need to go into, I feel that there's not a negotiation happening at this point anyway. So if you don't mind, I'll literally rip the Band-Aid right now. I think that the school wants 350 hours of ice time. But they didn't ask us for how much. My suggestion is we give them 350 hours of ice time at $150, which is matches Eveleth for 1 year, and that's it. No coaches, locker rooms. No, we give them what they're asking for a year, and that's my suggestion. I watched that meeting, so I knew what they were asking for right away. And it is on YouTube. They are the school board members that spoke are very okay with going other places for ice time at this time. So my suggestion and where I would go is 350 hours at $150 for that, and then they get to use the locker rooms like all the other teams, visiting teams. And then they come back to us next year, and maybe we can get a 3-year deal. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I apologize. I wasn't at the last city council meeting. I had a legislative commitment down in the cities for another matter. And so, but I did read the documents. I did watch the school board meeting. So for me, I'll vote whatever the motion is. I still believe that 350 hours and 150 hours for this year and $500 and $500 for the following 2 years is still where I'm looking at. And the reason I'm looking at that is that, we have that budget. We had a that was the anticipated thing. We gave the 1 year last year, and now they're asking for another 1 year this year. We're giving that 1 year with hopefully the commitment for 500 hours for the next 2 years, because we're going to be at the same point we're on right now next year by just approving the 1 year contract. But more importantly, it's not our decision to make. Emotionally maybe, but it's not our decision to make where the hockey games are played. That's up to the school board to determine. You want to play hockey at the Iron Trail Memorial Event Center? You want to play hockey at the Hippodrome? You want to play 2 games here, 3? That's up to the school board to determine, not the city. Our job is to provide ice time and make sure that ice time is available. And so we get a commitment for ice time, not the games. I have an emotional attachment to where I think the game should play, and I understand Eveleth's position as well. So the bottom line for me is, whatever decision we make, the school board will decide where they want to play, no matter what. We're just giving them a contract for ice time. They determine what games are played and where they're going. That's not in our facilities use agreement. It's only for ice time. So they can determine wherever they want to play. So that's why I'm still leaning toward the $500 for the following 2 years with the 350 and 150. But I'm open for discussion and clarification on what needs to be done. And I know we did get that email from Superintendent Schmidt about asking for some clarification and some action on the council based upon the last school board meeting. But again, I'll read it one more time. We don't determine where the games are played. The school board decides that. So it doesn't matter if there's 350 hours or 500 hours. They could use it or not use it. And then the last thing I want to say about it before we move to others, I did talk to our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, our Facilities Use Manager, Jim Hunt, with respect to can those additional 150 hours, at least in year one of this contract, be filled with other venues and established revenue stream that we need moving forward? And they said yes. So I'm right now comfortable with the 350 for the first year, but asking for the commitment for 500 the next year, so we're not kicking this can down the road once again. And I understand the dynamics and the parochialism and the change in the school board numbers coming forward, but you know, I think that's a secondary issue. Our primary issue is determine the ice time moving forward, and the school will determine what games are played and where they're played at. So thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Johnson.
I will move to offer the 350 hours of ice time at $150 an hour for 1 year, exclusive of extended use of locker rooms and coaches' offices.
Okay, that's moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Is there support?
I'll support for some discussion.
I'll support by Councilor Freely for discussion. For discussion, Councilor Freely.
Could I ask Mr. Silber to come up and talk to us about what we typically would charge and why we charge that with the facilities that we have to offer?
Good morning, Brian. Boy, you jogged right up here to the podium. You must be working out at that gym over there, so.
Not yet, but starting next Monday, I can start working out at the gym if I purchase membership.
Look forward to it.
I jogged up because I had several questions based off of this motion from an operations standpoint. We had structured the original contract that we offered for the ice time, then the 4 different locker rooms, the 2 different coaches' rooms, and the trainer's room that they have for the dedicated use that the school would have of those locker rooms. With this motion, is it the council's desire that those are no longer dedicated locker rooms and it is up to staff to assign locker rooms, and you are giving us the authority to assign the locker rooms as staff sees fit? Or what is I guess I'll go to you, Councilor Johnson. What is your intention of our operation model with that motion?
My intention would be giving the school what they're asking for. They're only asking for ice time. It would be up to the staff to decide who plays where or what the other uses of those rooms are for, whether it's a tournament weekend, and that now allows us to have more hockey teams that can independently use on game night, assigning those locker rooms accordingly. So my intention is to, based on what the motion was from the school district, to only authorize ice time until such time that they come back and ask for a different contract for renting those spaces, if that's what they choose to do.
But from a management standpoint, if staff of the building determined that those still being solely used by the high school was in the best interest of the building,
I would leave that up to staff.
You would leave that, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So did I answer your question, or did I just jump in with my question, Councilor Friedland? No. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I think maybe if you could just stay up here for a moment, we might have some more questions. So it has been moved and supported for discussion. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm reading the email from Dr. Schmidt regarding the minutes. Number 5, administrative item, motion to approve 150 hours at $150 per hour for facility use of the Hippodrome and 350 hours of the facility use of the Iron Trail Motors Event Center for 22-23, pending agreement from the cities of Eveleth and Virginia. There is no dollar figure that's stated for the usage of the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. And my main concern at going to $150 an hour, our ice time is actually $115 an hour, not not 207 or whatever came out of the school board discussion, if they want to add in our locker rates and our designated coach, you gave us the spreadsheet, Brian. You want to divide that by the 350 hours, yes, it does equal $207 basically an hour, but that's actually not the breakdown, and that's not the case.
That is correct.
So if we go to 150 per hour,
Then the total contract that we'd be offering the school would be for $52,500.
and including locker room usage, so we're basically losing and having to make up and I'm looking again at our budget and what we're putting in and transferring in $1 million from our general fund for that building. I can't go along with that. What it appears, the school board, according to the minutes, it might not be according to the YouTube video of the school board meeting itself, but reflected in the minutes is that they're asking for 350 hours of facility usage with no dollar value attached to that.
That is correct. So my assumption is they are asking for us to present just year one of the contract to them, rather than the 3-year contract,
Right.
just year
Right.
one.
Yeah, I understand year one. I'm looking right now at the dollar figure. I have issues with the length of time. I mean, to me, we need to plan fiscally for that building, and budgetarily. I agree with the mayor. We need some solid action there with more of a commitment. But for right now, for just this discussion, right now, what I'm kind of focused on is the dollar value. So I don't think I can support the motion because I'm concerned that it's going to impact the budget.
I would agree with you. I believe this current motion that is standing, while it is a great deal for the school, it's actually less than what our original proposal was to the school district. My personal recommendation would be that we offer them year one of the contract that we had previously submitted to the school board. Yes, how we have broken things down is different than how Eveleth has broken things down. We're running our facility differently than Eveleth is running the Hippodrome.
Correct.
I'm not going to
So if I
tell-
can back up that, Brian, this is the original agreement I think we put forward for 22-23, and the annual rate would be 89.9. Is that what you're stating for 350 hours, or was that the 500 hours? I gotta go look at what, this is the original, I don't know when this was submitted, hold on. I'm sorry.
I believe that one was
Go back to your
for
spreadsheet.
the 500
That was
hours.
for the 500, yep, I'm on your spreadsheet right now. So 22-23 school year, hourly ICE rate is $115 per hour, 350 hours equals $40,250. And then you have the various dedicated boys, varsity and junior varsity locker room, dedicated girls, varsity and junior varsity locker rooms, dedicated boys coaching office, dedicated girls coaching office, and the shared trainers room. And I'd have to add those up, 5,400, 5,400, 5,400, 5,400, 4,200, 4,200, and 2,400. So if we remove those from the contract, that's a good portion of loss for our facility to actually lose when those locker rooms would be actually utilized and our staff would have to be maintaining them.
And
So I
our
have-
staff still would be maintaining them either way.
Right. Whether we're going to either A, get paid, or no, we're not going to get paid.
Correct.
And that is concerning to me when I have to make a decision based on financial responsibility for that facility. I understand what the school wants. I also think in our budgetary planning process going forward, and I appreciate you're recommending a 1 year. We are definitely kicking this can down the road. I don't know if we could say, okay, we need something in writing stating there's an intent then, an intention to have public meetings or dialogue with all three entities, whether it be Eveleth, the school board, and the city of Virginia, to iron this out. But I do feel that we are kicking the can down the road. And for me, when we're dealing with putting a lot of money from our general fund into the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, I want to be fiscally responsible in the next 2 years when we've always had 3-year contracts with the school district. It's concerning to me, and I've had a lot of emails on both sides of this issue. And I guess if I take off my parent hat or my hockey parent hat, or I'm not a hockey parent, but the hockey group hat or a figure skating group hat, what I really need to consider, I think what our council needs to consider, is financial responsibility for that building. Whatever the school's needs are the school's needs. But we sit in a position where we have to look out for how that building cash flows and how we plan staffing. And you obviously know that firsthand, staffing and budgetary, that's really important moving forward. If the school board doesn't want a 3-year contract, I don't know what we can do to assure that our building will be utilized. Now, I did have a conversation with Brian when we did have a discussion as a council, and they were saying, yep, you can fill it up with youth hockey or tournaments or what have you, or figure skating. And I never really clarified with you the ice, I guess, the hourly ice rate for each of those groups or user groups, but it is significantly less. So say youth hockey, say it's $35 or $45 an hour. That's what it is for figure skating, whatever that is. So yes, we can fill the ice time. We definitely can do that. But at that ice rate amount, we're definitely losing a lot of revenue. And I don't even know that it's revenue. It just, I guess it's revenue to offset our expense. But it's a very different discussion then going forward for the following 2 years. How do we plan for this? How do we budget for this? There's been talk about junior
hockey franchise.
Junior hockey franchise, which is semi-pro, and then they would want exclusivity, and that would bump the high school out. I mean, I've had a lot of different conversations with a lot of different people, but the bottom line is we need to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers for the cash flow of this center. And I don't know what that looks like. I know you've come and given us recommendations. It does not appear that it's in the school board's will to do a 3-year contract. So I'm really stuck right now. I can't support this motion because to me, it doesn't make sense cash flow wise, especially for this season for 1 year and giving those locker rooms up when they're the ones that gave the input how to design those locker rooms. They came in, they took the time. Those locker rooms were built and designed for high school hockey. So I have a problem with now they've come in, the city, the taxpayers of the city of Virginia have paid for the development of all of those rooms, and now we're not going to charge. I don't think that that's a good use. It's not a good use of our taxpayer dollars. So I don't know where this leads us going forward. I'd like to hear more discussion, but at this time, I can't support the motion on the floor. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Back to Councilor Johnson.
I 100% agree with you, Councilor Paulson. My point here, I feel like we are trying to do the school board's job. They have not, this is the first time the board itself has given any direction to their staff on what they want us to do publicly. And that was my point of bringing this up, is meeting what their request is, partial request at that, and us formally saying, no, that's not an option we're willing to consider. My understanding is that theoretically the hockey season starts soon, Brian, in a perfect world?
Youth hockey is doing tryouts beginning tonight.
Okay. And when do we know when the high school captains' practices usually would be?
Girls Captain's practices begin October 17th. Boys' captain's practices begin Monday, October 31st. Both of their seasons begin with team practices and tryouts 2 weeks after captain's practices begin.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to make sure that we are doing what we need to do, so whatever happens next, we can say we did our due diligence. We tried to, not arguing with them, but formally saying, no, we're not gonna do $350. I picked $150 because it matched what Eveleth's offer is. And I agree, they're two different facilities. There's nothing that you said, Counselor, that I can disagree with. However, we need to start, I feel like this council needs to start making sure we're documenting where we're at and moving forward. I get very frustrated that, this 500-hour is something Brian created. He sat down and figured out what he thinks the usage would be. We have not gotten a formal request from the school saying this is actually how many hours the school wants. They have not done that. I would think that would be the staff and the school board's position should be coming to us saying, this is what we need, what can you offer us? We create the contract, they say yes or no. But this, where we're trying to force, and I feel like we're trying to force the school district to do what we want them to do. And I think they've made it very clear what they want to do. And I think that's where I'm at with this is, okay, here's what you want. If we say no, fine. Because as the mayor said, it's our responsibility to take care of our building. It's the school board's decision when they play games, where they play games, where they practice, how they practice. I think that we've spent, honestly, I feel like we as a council have, and staff has spent much more time on this than the school and the school board have, especially in our public meetings. So that's where I'm at. And I'm not gonna change my motion because I think it's important that we formally say that's a no-go for us. What you are asking for is not gonna work for us in our facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. And before we go to Councilor Beyond, if I may, and back to Councilor Paulson, I just want to, I don't lose my train of thought with respect to some of the issues that have been discussed. And so the school board has kind of given us how many hours they want of ice time. 150 hours at the Hippodrome, 350 hours at the Untitled Chapter Event Center. Doing the math, that's 500 hours. Right? And so if they were going to want to continue to do that, they just want to make sure that the ice time that they're paying for is equating to what they anticipate to be the games that are being played over at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center or the Hippodrome. So for me, the original proposal from us was 350 hours with all these amenities in there, which went from $115 of ice time to $175 for the use of the entire facility. And I think if these kids, these high school kids who are in their senior year or whatever, they want to play in an environment that they're going to have memories about, whether it's a Hippodrome or whether it's the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. But to negate the use of some of those facilities over there at the Iron Trail Motors Center doesn't make any sense to me. I think they should have the opportunity to use all those facilities. And that's why so if I was going to acquiesce and if I was going to compromise for one more year, and the motion isn't on the floor to do that, and with all due respect to Councilor Johnson, I'm not going to support this motion either, is that it's 150 hours at that rate. They were willing to accept that, I think. And that I wouldn't go down to $150 an hour, no use of the agreement. I think it's the $175 with use of the entire facility. That's why the facility was built in the first place. So the decision I have to make as one person who votes here is whether or not I want to vote for the 350, 150 original proposal to have for 1 year, or stick with my philosophy of having the school board hopefully formally commit to $500 for $500 for the following year, because they're already committing to $500 for this year. They just won $150 at the hip and $350 here. And so if it comes down, and I had that conversation with you about filling the ice time, and you can do that, and Councilor Paulson made a good point about, it's not the same amount of money in ice time, so the revenue stream isn't going to be what we anticipated, what we expected, and what we budgeted for. So I was going to want the recommendation of our staff that, we need to have this 350, 150, and then move to renegotiate that after 1 year. Again, after we gave it 1 year last time, now 1 year this time. So for me, it's ice time costs. Use of facility has nothing to do with the games because we don't decide that. So, thank you. Councilor Beyondich, and then over to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And this discussion has been very good. But I also feel that sitting here in this seat, we have to be fiscally responsible for what that building was built for and can generate for our taxpayers in this city. I am also very frustrated at if we've talked about this 1 year, 3 year contract, if they truly were going to acquiesce to be playing more here in the following 2 years, that contract would be okay. So I have a real problem with the second time of being promised something that is not coming to fruition. But I just have to look at the Virginia taxpayers and the burden on them with this building. I've also had several calls from not only parents and grandparents, but some of the students, and it's hard for me to listen to them talk to me where they feel their voices are not heard. So it's kind of, we're stuck in this limbo, we're put in this position. And I just have to look at what's best for the city of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Paulson, one more comment, and hopefully maybe we can call for the question on this particular motion that's on the floor. But we could continue with the discussion as long as we need to. And after this is over, we'll take a little bit of a break before we come back to the rest of the agenda. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if this is easy to pull up, Pam or Britt or Brian. And I know I brought this up last time, so the as of the May 3rd meeting of the City of Eveleth, they were having discussions on this facility use contract between IC 2909 and the Hippodrome, or the City of Eveleth. Can we backtrack to when our first conversations, remember we put the contract forward, and we also put one forward to the Wolverine Club, and we wanted the language to be the same. I know Brian worked on that extensively to have it be, one was a lease or leasee, and then we changed it to a facilities usage agreement. And I don't know if anyone would have a documentation, because what some of the discussion that's been out there is that the city council has been derelict in their duties to either we're talking about, Councilor Johnson was talking about due diligence, and we have been discussing this, and I guess I'd like a clarification date or a start date, if anybody has that available, of when the City of Virginia actually entered into dialogue with the athletic, I would assume it would have been the athletic directors, Brian, along with the superintendent. I don't know if it would have been the activities committee, that when this dialogue began to even craft or draft the City of Virginia's contract with discussions that I would assume you had and that took place. So if you could maybe recollect a beginning date.
I don't have the exact date, but we began discussions with the school back in May.
It was June 7th that we had our first committee of the whole meeting where we discussed the facilities use agreement with the school, and the other one with.
Okay, so June 7th is Virginia's official date, and prior to that, there had been conversation between you as a representative of the City of Virginia and the athletic directors, or maybe you could shed light on some of that conversation. I don't mean to put you on the
There was
spot.
there was discussions between City of Virginia staff and school staff as to what their desire was to see.
Okay, and I would assume then those conversations, it sounds like from the May 3rd City of Eveleth meeting, that there were conversations taking place prior to, with the City of Eveleth as well.
I would assume that there were, based on what was reported at the City of Eveleth council
City
meeting.
council meeting. So that kind of leads me to the fact that we are now in the month of middle, and almost end of September. We're going back and forth on this contract. The City of Virginia, at some point, one of the school board members stated that the City of Virginia was derelict in their duties. And I guess what I would put forward is that whomever is the liaison to communicate with the Rockridge School Board was not giving the school board enough information to actually, as Counselor Johnson states, to come back to the cities and tell us what they wanted. So to me, it's a breakdown of really parochial communication between who's having conversations with what city are they having them, and why, in fact, I mean, did it go back to their activities committee? We don't know, and that's not something we can control. But we're trying to craft and draft a document that we've actually been working on formally since that meeting, and I would assume even prior to that meeting, there were conversations probably with our attorney in crafting and drafting that so that it could be presented to the committee of the whole at that meeting in June. So I'm concerned, you know, a lot of us are hearing different things, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is both cities have been working on this contract diligently and in good faith since May. And my concern is that the school board maybe wasn't given enough information or clarified information in order for them to come back and propose to each city council of what their needs are or what their proposals would have been. So that puts us in a situation that I don't appreciate being in right now, because as Counselor Johnson stated, they haven't come forward. There were just different proposals being kind of floated around by each community, and not all three of our entities have met with one another. I think it would have been a really healthy conversation to have Eveleth City Council, the school board, and Virginia City Council sit down and discuss how we want to, maybe not, but that to me would be a very transparent process for the public to give input, and so that cities can plan their budget process regarding the Hippodrome and the Untitled Motors Event Center as well. So, you know, when I'm looking forward at going, how do I make this decision? We do have to make this decision based upon our taxpayers and what the expectation is. And my concern is, if we don't go forward with some sort of 3-year commitment with the school, we're going to be scrambling to either fill it with youth hockey, which is at a lower rate of pay, which we're going to then be scrambling to either and it's still the same level of staffing, Brian, am I correct? I mean, you got tournaments in there on the weekend, you're packing them in, it's the same level of staffing, but a lower ice rate, so we're losing money.
In the buildings, the building revenue, yes, we are losing money. However, one of the economic
Concessions might make it up, right?
concessions would help make that up, but one of the things that is really difficult to track is the economic impact of the building. Economic impact of a youth tournament is much greater than that of a high school game.
And I would wholeheartedly agree with that, and we've been told.
But I don't know how to
by the youth hockey.
get you good numbers
folks.
on that. I'm not that great of an accountant. I'll
That's a
acquiesce to
wonderful
Sherry
thing.
on that.
Yep, and that's a wonderful thing for the city of Virginia to have that economic impact. But our hardline numbers come in with the budgetary process and cash flow of the Iron Trail Event Center, not the ripple effect that it has in our community, which is fantastic, and I wholeheartedly support that. As a business owner, I wholeheartedly support small business. But the reality is that we need to make decisions, fiscal decisions that make sense going forward. And I don't know what else people feel about that, but, you know, we need to have some commitment so we can plan financially for the future. And that, I thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to continue, and I'm finished, but I really would look forward to more discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor and support for that, and we've had discussion, so hopefully we'll be calling for the question soon before we go back to Counselor Johnson. The school board, and the Counselor Freely, the school board knows what they want. They wanted 500 hours. That's what they said. That's what we're willing to accept. But where the hours are going to be allocated is their decision to make, not ours. We make our presentation with respect to that. So the motion on the floor is, we'll wait before Counselor Johnson, then we'll have to read back the motion, and hopefully we'll call for the question to vote. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to back up what you're saying, Counselor Paulson, on Friday, May 13th, Brian emailed Josh Lampa and Chad Hazelton recapping at length their meeting of that morning. So that was the initial conversation, at least per our emails. And then on May 17th, the response was, Brian, can you please give us a proposal with a dollar amount for this? So I want to really support Brian and what you're saying, Counselor Paulson. The city of Virginia has been doing their due diligence since May. And this is the first official emails I can find. So we have done our job by far. And I think that that I am also, barring any other discussion, I'm ready to vote as well.
Okay, I think we need to vote on this motion then before we move forward to, if it passes, then that's it. If it doesn't pass, we'll have to have some further discussion. But once, whatever decision we make after this vote, we're going to take a short break, give us some chance to rethink these things, and then come back again with the rest of the business. Councilor Freely.
I guess, kudos are in order to the Eveleth School Board members, Rockridge School Board members, for advocating on behalf of the historical significance of the Hippodrome and elevating that to be parallel to the $38 million state-of-the-art facility that we offered for the kids to play hockey in. I'm confounded by that, but congratulations to them for doing so. Right now, we're contemplating providing the same costs as a 100-year-old arena that has only one ice surface. And I supported this for discussion. And at this point in time, I cannot support moving forward with what's been proposed, because that's not what we brought to the school board to consider. And so at this point in time, I would not be supportive of just providing them the 150, 350 split for the costs that we've discussed, because that's just not relevant to what we're trying to accomplish at our facility. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. So it has been moved and supported, and before we vote, would you please read back the motion, Pam?
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Freely, to submit a proposal to ISD number 2909 to offer 350 hours of ice time at $150 with the extended use of coaches' offices and locker rooms at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Is that the correct motion, Councilor Johnson?
Exclusive of the rooms as part of the agreement.
Excluding those?
Excluding those. This is just ice time.
Okay.
Thank you. So that's the clarification on the motion, and we're all aware of the motion now. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
No. You have to take roll call? You do. Thank you, Pam.
Duffy?
No.
Baraboo is absent. Freely?
No.
Paulson?
No.
Beyondich? Johnson?
No.
Barancelli?
Okay, motion passes unanimously. The motion does not pass because motion fails unanimously. Thank you. So let's just take 5 minutes. I know that we're in the middle of this discussion, but I think it's important for us to just step back a little bit. But before we do, I think Counselor Friedrich has, no, let's take 5 minutes and then come right back. Before we take 5 minutes, Brian?
For the benefit of those watching online that will probably tune out after this, wanted to remind everybody and invite all the counselors and you, Mayor, to the Tennis for All building this Friday at 3:30. We are going to be having the naming unveiling for the new name for the tennis facility. So everybody is invited to come this Friday at 3:30.
Okay, thank you. Did the no announcement say 3 o'clock or did it say 3:30?
The announcement's 3:30.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll do. Don't go away if you're listening at home. We're just taking 5 minutes and we'll be coming back and to discuss this item a little bit further. So let's take 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, everybody, we're all back and ready to go again. Thank you for your patience, those who are listening at home and those who are in the audience. We had to take a 5-minute break here. So we are still likely at item number 7 under Building and Grounds, the discussion of the facilities use agreement between the City of Virginia and Independent School District number 2909 Rock Ridge. Okay, let's continue with that conversation and discussion, and out of this discussion, the continuation of the discussion may result in another motion. So, Councilor Freely?
I guess I would be prepared to make a motion to provide to the Rockridge School Board for ice usage. Essentially, it's mirroring the first year of the 3-year contract that we proposed to them, which was splitting the 150 and 350. But the total cost they would incur for the needs that they would have at our facility, the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, would be $72,650. It's essentially mirroring the first year of the 3-year contract that we had originally proposed.
Very good, thank you. That's a motion on the floor by Councilor Freely. Is there support for that motion?
I'll support for discussion.
Councilor Johnson supports for further discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Johnson.
Councilor Freely, are you offering a single-year contract? Is that what I'm trying to understand if it's the 1 year or the 3-year?
Yeah, ultimately, that's what they're seeking from us. And we're at the point where I'm of the mind it's better to get some than none. And so that's what they need from us. That's the cost they'll incur for that. And it provides them what they've asked for.
Thank you. So it has been moved and supported, and the motion is to offer the Rock Ridge School District number 2909 a 1-year contract with 350 hours of ice time provided with the amenities as originally outlined in the facilities use contract agreement that was proposed. Is there, and that was moved and supported, and is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, since this is what was proposed that we respond to, I believe that this motion makes sense. I do have a concern going forward for the following next 2 school years, so after that, subsequent. So how do we start that discussion so that we have some time to budgetarily plan then? Do you know what I'm saying? I know you want to start the discussion right away, but we're still kicking this can.
My recommendation is, after this motion, make another motion for staff to begin negotiating with the school for the 2023-24 school year and beyond. Go ahead and make that motion now so that we start that process now.
Very good.
And that would be the facilities use agreement for a 3-year agreement, correct? Because
Our desire is a multi-year agreement,
Correct.
but I would be requesting that you instruct staff to begin discussions at this point with the school for future use agreements.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with that with one caveat, Mayor.
Okay.
When these discussions started to take place between staff at the school, staff at each city, there was no necessarily congruent discussions between all 3 groups. So could that be a facilitation in making, after we either approve or not approve this motion, could we make that a part of the next motion going forward with the facilitation that we come together to have this? I don't know how that looks.
I'm going to defer that question to Mr. Lindsay, because I don't know if we have the ability to, I think we can recommend to the school board and to another municipality, but I don't think we can tell the school board and municipality,
Right. And
that
I'm
it
not
needs to be an
saying
open and
tell.
transparent.
Let's clarify, I'm not saying
And
tell
for
anybody.
my position with how much drama there has been with all of this, I would love for it to be much more open and transparent. Let's save the drama for the lyric. That's where they thrive on drama down there in a completely different way. But let's save the drama for the theater, not for the council chambers and school board chambers.
And I would agree, and so just to clarify my ask, it would be just how might we facilitate something like that? Not any type of a demand, but how might the three entities come together to have a discussion going forward for the following contract years?
Well, let's vote on this
Okay.
motion first. That's on the motion on the table. Once again, would you please read back the motion, and then we can move forward with another motion after this. Pam?
Moved by Counselor Friedlieb, supported by Counselor Johnson, to submit a proposal to ISD number 2909 to offer a one-year agreement with 350 hours of ice time with the amenities included for the cost of $72,650.
Thank you. Is that correct? It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by Counselor Paulson.
I'm sorry. I really want to clarify that this is at the school board meeting. They had discussed 350 hours if you divide 72, whatever, 60, it should equal 200, Brian, help me out, 200 and what was stated at the school board meeting was $207 an hour. Can you do the math real quick? 72, 650 divided by 350. Okay, so that number that the school board put forward is reflectant and upon what action is being taken, and that's what their understanding was at that meeting. So this proposal going forward is nothing new to what they actually discussed at their last meeting regarding the City of Virginia's facilities usage agreement. Thank you.
Okay, it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Euler? Anyone? Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously with one counselor absent. Thank you. Okay.
I will move to direct staff to begin negotiations and discussions for next year's ICE usage contract as soon as possible.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Freely, to direct staff to immediately begin inquiries and negotiations for ice time for the following years prior to this last motion. So is there any further discussion in that regard? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson, could you clarify, is it regarding just specifically ICE usage, or would it be facilities usage?
Facilities usage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. So there's a motion on the floor in support. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich.
In this motion, is this with having all three bodies together, or is that further down the line?
Well, I think the motion, if I go ahead and clarify, the motion is for them to start the negotiations, and however that pans out, we'll decide. Is that correct, Counselor Johnson?
I would agree with that it really is, our intent is that our only worry is about Iron Trail Motors Event Center. And so I think that's what the staff would be focused on. If there needs to be whoever that involves and why, I would leave up to the staff to determine, because and quite honestly, the city of Eveleth has their own needs, and if they want to split that out, then it would be up to the school to invite both of us into that discussion instead of us telling them what to do, because truly this is a contract with the school, not with the city of Eveleth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimous, one absent. Thank you.
Thank you. If possible, could we move item number 10 up on the agenda so that Matt Reed can get on with the rest of his day? Item number 10 is approve the resolution for the use of eminent domain for a portion of parcel 90-180-978 and 90-180-981, which is same contiguous parcels, in order to obtain an easement for road right-of-way for the 2023 street improvement project, and that road right-of-way happens to be 13th Street South.
Okay, thank you. I apologize, Matt. I mean, I should have made myself aware of this a long time ago and got you up a lot earlier, so thank you for bringing it up, Britt. Matt?
Good morning. No problem, Mayor. That's okay. Appreciate you bumping me up now. So this is, I don't know if anybody's got any questions. Long and the short of it is, as we started getting the plans prepared for 13th Street, this has been almost a year in the making now. It was determined that actually the city does not own the right-of-way for 13th Street right now. Portions of it. They own some, but not portions of it. And so how that ever came to be, I have no idea. That predates me, and it's been there for a number of years. So, but in order to proceed with doing the reconstruction project and to be able to receive the federal grants, and for just good practice, I guess, we're working through, Britain and the staff's been working through trying to acquire that property. And I guess from what I understand, and Britt can maybe speak more to this, there's been some adversity to the selling of the property, and so it's come now to condemnation or eminent domain, whichever process, I guess, and Brian can speak to that a little bit more. So I can answer any questions, otherwise Britt or Brian
We
too.
had hired Freiberger Law Firm out of Duluth to help us with the eminent domain process on these parcels. This wasn't the only spot we didn't own the road. We basically didn't own the road from Target to 6th Avenue. And the road has been there for as long as I can remember, so it was well before I was here too. It's always been 13th Street for as long as I knew. So every other property owner had agreed verbally just to give us the roadway. They didn't have a problem with it. The church did not agree to give us the roadway, and they asked us to proceed with condemnation proceedings. Thus we are. And to do that, we need to do this resolution for eminent domain to take the parcel from them. It's just, I put a little map in your packet. It's just the road width is what we're looking to get.
Okay, thank you.
It's the yellow colored portion.
Yeah, I went down and took a look at it. I mean, I don't understand the issue there. It must be some congregational or legal issue with respect to their property, but all the other residents are amenable to that, and I think we should move forward with that. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the church located on the south side of 13th Street?
Correct.
Well, I think they're both located, but it's not on 6th and 13th.
No, this
Okay.
is the one at the corner,
Right where
kind
the
of the
stop
corner of
sign,
9th Avenue and 6th.
where that
and
stop
13th.
sign is. And what would be is there any advantage that this entity would have based to not allow the city to move forward? Is there any advantage they have? They're not maintaining it, they're not.
No, we've maintained it, and that's going to be probably our argument is that we've maintained it as a roadway for as long as anybody can remember. It should become a city property. And
Yeah, I'm comfortable going forward. I just was trying to, I guess, understand what the old, I don't know what my words would be, what the issue is with allowing that to happen, because they're gaining no benefit from the land. I mean, it's a street. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, looking for council action. Councilor Johnson.
I will move the resolution authorizing the use of eminent domain to acquire a portion of parcel numbers 90, 180, 978, and 981 for city public roadway purposes.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further? No, I'm looking for support. Looking for support. Looking for support. Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Freely, do you have some further discussion? Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I want to point out, there is one more parcel that's going tax forfeit that we are planning to obtain in November. It should be tax forfeit in November, and then the county we've already sent a letter to the county saying we intend to get that parcel as well for public use as a roadway, because it is an existing roadway.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Back to our regular agenda, so item number 8, discuss the facilities use agreement between City of Virginia and the Wolverine Blue Line Club.
Okay, thank you.
Still in draft form for the council's review.
Yep, thank you. Brian, could you give us a little synopsis? Thank you.
This is a management agreement for the Blue Line Club to manage the dry land fitness area of the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. This is the one room upstairs that is the fitness room. It does not impact any other area or any other rooms in the building. And they are offering to pay us to have the rights to manage that room.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Councilor Freely, then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freely.
This agreement then would also assist in offsetting the cost for the lease on equipment that we've leased for the fitness rooms, essentially?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
There's two things. One, after listening to some of the discussion, the 21 and over requirement may be unrealistic based on some college kids who are not in high school assisting in that. And I would be agreeable that 21 go down to 19 with the stipulation that they're not in high school. My big concern is high school kids supervising close.
School kids,
yes. So that would be one change I'd be willing to look at. And then my understanding, and I can't find it, so if you could point it out, that the city is reserving the right with a 30-day notice that we could either close the room for use because of rental, or we could use it if we needed to with a 30-day notice.
That was part of our discussions. I do not know where that is in the lease, but I believe Mr. Lindsay can easily find that for us.
Because that will alleviate my concerns about it being exclusive use to that organization as management. I think that the chances of us needing or using that room for anything else is very small, but I do like that if there's a large conference that has rented the whole facility, that we are controlling access so that there's not any crossover or potential for risk to our youth hockey players. And then I guess I had a third one that got brought up in one of the other ones about, and I don't know if it was in here because I know we had mirrored ones about making sure that we take out the paragraph about school staff or their youth hockey staff cleaning. I think that was still in one of the last offers of the previous motion or before the break. I want to make sure that's been taken out because we do all the cleaning and everything as well.
And what was kept in there was that the players' boxes have to be cleaned by
Okay.
them after the games. And then the rest of the building's ours. But we expect them to take all their garbage out of the players' box when they leave.
Thank you. Mayor, if I may?
Brian?
The access provisions are contained in Article 18, which reserves the right for the city to have access to the space. And then under Article 1, Section D, that has the retained 30-day provision where we can grant access on 30 days' notice.
Thank you very much. I am okay with this agreement moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into any of this. I have already committed that I would support going forward with this exclusivity. but it was recently brought to my attention that there are two Wolverine Blue Line clubs, one being a boys' club and one being a girls' club. And I don't know if anyone is aware of that or if it might create a challenge. I think I maybe discussed it briefly with some city staff. And if that comes, if the other Blue Line Club comes forward, how do we deal with that?
This was discussed in our negotiations. It is the Blue Line Club that we are entering into's intention to work with the other Blue Line Club, youth hockey, and any other organization that it would be deemed appropriate to be utilizing that room on a regular basis to provide access.
So they'll work that out between the user groups, between themselves?
Yes, they will schedule and do all that. That's why I said it's more of a management agreement from how I'm looking at it.
Okay, thank you for helping me understand that and for clarifying. Then is there anything that would preclude, if there would be a financial consideration for any of those other user groups, is there anything to preclude that from happening with the current agreement we have set forward?
Mayor, if I may?
Like if it's a sublease or a, whatever, not trying to muddy the waters, but.
Brian?
Counselor, so I think the answer to that question is a couple of things. Number one, nothing would preclude the city from negotiating a separate agreement if we needed to. My understanding in working through those conversations is that as a part of the total package, the intent of this room or the intent of this space was that it be dedicated to the dryland training for hockey. And the understanding that I had in speaking with in those conversations was not only did they look to make this room available to the other Blue Line Club and the youth hockey, but also potentially if we've got players from the area who return during the summer who are engaged in collegiate level hockey or beyond, and they asked to do some training, I understand that the room would be made available for them as
Okay.
well.
Yep, so what's in this agreement, Brian, it doesn't preclude them as a management contract from going out and being able to bring in other users into that area.
Correct. They would be the party responsible to us as the city.
That's totally fine. I just want to clarify that. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you. We need a motion, one way or the other, unless there's any more information that wants to be disseminated before a motion is made. So we're looking for council action.
I would move the approval of the agreement.
Support for
Council
discussion.
Freely moves to approve the agreement between the City of Virginia and the Wolverine Blue Line Club, is supported by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you bringing up that there's two Blue Line Clubs, Minnesota Nonprofit Corporation. I would like to make sure that I've just looked up Blue Line Clubs on the Secretary of State, and I don't see the Wolverine or any Blue Line Club registered anywhere close to here. So I would like to make sure that we're having, and then that will clarify which Blue Line Club we're doing. I just want to.
If I may, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I do know that the Boys Blue Line Club has gone through the process of establishing 501c3 status. The girls program currently is in that process of establishing that. And this agreement would be with the boys, and part of the agreement, they would have to be providing us all of that documentation.
Okay, because I'm currently on Secretary of State, and the closest Blue Line Club is Ely. So I would like to make sure that,
This building is funded by state bonding dollars. I have to submit all agreements to Roger Barons at the Minnesota Management and Budget Office, and he requires that I submit all that information as well. So we will have that information before we're allowed to
perfect.
technically sign the agreement as well.
Thank you.
And we're hoping that that individual is more cooperative with this item than he has been with other items, and I'll say that publicly. Thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, please.
Item number 9 is discuss the facilities use agreement between the City of Virginia and State of Minnesota for Stock Ball Field.
So the stock field, I mean, they want to play their Legion ball here, hold tournaments here? Why is the state of Minnesota involved in this? Is it state VFW or college?
This is with the college. This is a standard agreement that this council has approved time and time again. This is giving the college permission to use stock baseball field for their college baseball operations, and it gives us, the city, the permission to use the college softball field located right next to Olcott Park, that is college property, for summer youth programming.
I remember those agreements now. Yes, thank you for the.
So this is something that you have approved.
Yes.
Every single year, going back several years.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Looking for council action.
Move the approval of the agreement.
Moved by Councilor Freeze to approve the agreement. Is there support?
Support?
Well, we had two there, so I'll pick one. Support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 11 is to set a public hearing to review the appeal from Virginia Building LLC at 1301 17th Street South. This is regarding a variance request.
Regarding the car wash? Okay, thank you.
How much, oh, sorry.
Wait, no, go ahead. Councilor Johnson.
How much notice do we need for that public meeting? 10 days?
I know we had some individuals that were expressed concern with respect to this, and so those, I think maybe those individuals, make sure they have an opportunity to attend whatever the public hearing we set date, so they can attend as well.
Mayor, I would move that we set it as a separate meeting. I anticipate it's going to be kind of lengthy. Would Tuesday the 4th at 1 p.m. work? That would be after the council meeting theoretically, and give us a chance to have lunch.
It would be after the committee of the whole meeting?
Committee of the whole meeting, yes.
Yes, October 4th,
October 4th at 1 p.m.
and that works for you, obviously. So how about anybody else? Does 1 o'clock, October 4th for the public hearing with respect to this matter work for everybody?
A question.
Yes, Councilor Paulson.
My question is, can someone explain the process, and are we following the correct process for a public hearing to review the appeal from Virginia Building LLC? Do we normally have a public hearing to review an appeal?
Yes. It came through planning and zoning, who denied the request for that,
And we upheld the denial.
and we upheld it, and now there's an appeal process. They could appeal before the city council, and I'll defer to Brian for a legal opinion. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. That is the next step in the administrative process, is that the aggrieved party has the opportunity to bring it before the council and for an appeal hearing, a due process hearing. And this, I believe that this timeline falls within the requirement.
Okay, so then in setting a special meeting, we're fine doing it that way because that's the requirement to have a public meeting.
That is our next step.
Thank you.
Thank you. So is everybody amenable to October 4th, 1 p.m. here in the City Council chambers for the public hearing? Anyone that cannot make it, and we'll notify Councilor Bearable of that.
Make the motion.
Councilor Johnson makes the motion to set a public hearing to hear the appeal from Virginia Building LLC located at 1301 17th Street South for 1 p.m. on Tuesday, October 4th. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm sorry, it's just the first time I've gone through this process, so I have a couple questions further. Is it the same notification process for a public hearing for neighbors as the beginning process of being at the planning and zoning process, the notification.
It is a public hearing, so it won't even need to be hosted, but I'll defer to Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. And I apologize, I haven't just reviewed these, but my recollection of these provisions, because this is an appeal proceeding, the primary participants would be the appellant and the council. So that I don't believe that there's necessarily a notice requirement to neighbors for this appeal hearing.
Okay, thank you for that, Brian.
But I think in part of the motion, we could ensure that there is a public notice for those who may be interested in hearing this appeal. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. And I guess I've never done an appeal before, so if we could get a short breakdown of what could happen, what our expectations are, what we can do or not do at the meeting ahead of time so that we're all on the same page, I think that'd be really helpful for me.
Yeah, and I think by inviting other people, or finding what that process is, those who did come to the council meeting in opposition to it, I would likely to hear if there's any other opposition or support for that from other residents that are close by that facility. So it has been moved and supported to set that date. Is there any further discussion? Once again, October 4th, 1 p.m. here in the council chambers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is, under other items of concern, discuss city's labor negotiation strategy. So maybe before we go to the closed session, if anybody else has any other items of concern, we can discuss.
I do have one other item, if I may, and I apologize to the council for not getting this out to you, but I just got it the other day. Talked to Will Frederickson from the 12th Step House, and he asked if we could do a little proclamation at the recovery meeting day that's up at Alcott Park tonight. And I said that, well, that I would. I put together something, and I see that he took the liberty of ensuring that this was approved in the front page of the newspaper today. So I did put together and asked Pam to put this in draft form. Did we give it to everybody? We did. So you have that before you on the 12th Step House Day. And I know that you read had a proclamation approved for the Day of Recovery, but this would be exclusive to the people who has provided this 12-step house service over a period of time. And so I won't read the whole thing. I'll read it tonight at the meeting, or have somebody read it. And so I'm looking for a council approval for the 12th Step House Day proclamation. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about it.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Freely. Is there support? Support by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, I was planning on attending this evening, so if you had prior plans, I'd be more than willing to read if you
Well,
were.
I appreciate the offer, Councilor Johnson, but I will be there tonight, so thank you very much for doing so. And so there's just one item in the last paragraph that would be changed for the proclamation to make a little bit better verbiage. And so the last paragraph will read, "Now therefore be it resolved, the mayor and the city council of the city of Virginia does hereby claim this day, September 20th, as 12th Step House Day in coordination with and in recognition of National Recovery Month and the important role that these organizations play in the guidance and healing of those in recovery." So just a couple little word changes there, so that's okay. Councilor Friedlieb.
What are the hours of the event tonight?
4 to 7? 4 to 7. Okay, thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Council. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to bring up, a while back with the hockey, we had some discussion about them storing hockey equipment in a city building, and I would just like to request that we send out a memo or a note to all of our user groups and MOU holders that the storing of personal private property on city property is a liability to the city, and we shouldn't be doing that. And I will make that in the form of a motion to direct city staff to remind folks of that policy and via email or writing as necessary.
Or maybe even posting as well. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support for that? Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson. Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Anything else from a council that come before on other items of concern? No? Okay, thank you. I guess Britt, item 12, is it recommended we go into closed session with
Yes,
respect to
item
this?
12A is labor negotiations with LELS, and item 12B is mediation with AFSCME that occurred last week.
Move to closed session.
Councilor Johnson moves to close the council meeting. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're in closed session.